quite happy to just sit back and drink the water. Okay, so it's part fictional and part real. The example we're talking about is similar to yours. It's an unemployment amelioration project, and we'll tell a story fictionally of how things could have happened in this. So in our story, the European taxpayer gave the EU governments an amount of money, which was then channeled to three organizations: the Public Works, Education, Department of Trade and Industry, who then picked a particular agency that then launched a project that had education and public works and tax benefits to persuade, on the one hand, employers to hire a particular target population, to train those people into certain works, and then also to launch various public works initiatives that gave them short-term skills. The overall purpose was to change a problem measured by the baseline as 30% unemployment in this area, and to see in 2020 a reduction in 15% of that problem. The rationale for for dropping from 30 to 15% was political pressure. There was a millennium goal, so there was a political imperative. However, there was a feasibility study, pilot done, that decided that for every 10 million euros a particular job would be created, and so sufficient money was collected from the donors and then allocated into the project to promise roughly the right amount of spend, the right amount of work to deliver that level of change. This was the paperwork, the paper trail that went with this project, and in general these were the stakeholders and how they connected as the money flowed from the donor through to the beneficiaries in the direction of seeing a solution.
Are you sure it's fictional?
I mean, those are the generic steps in all theories of change. But obviously, this particular example was.
Any
comments, reactions to this? The strikes, possible limitations to this? As far as this goes?
Well, we had some discussions about discursive discussions about this in our group. And
of course,
it's one very interesting way of doing it, I think. But one critique that one could mention there is that I think you had a good answer to this as well about the
linearity,
and about the also not that it's not only about money, which it appeared to be, and maybe this equity dimension. But
so Barbara responded like a good European by saying that this appears to be far too linear for her liking. I responded like a good African by saying that Europeans have forgotten the era of enlightenment. They have forgotten the disciplines, and because we're both German, it's a bit of a joke amongst us to say that this is exactly linear, and it's justifiably so because it is following the path that the money follows from the donor through to the beneficiaries. That is exactly the path that is always followed as the cash works its way through the development cycle.
My reaction to this is, I mean, this is a good part of it, but whatever it is you're trying to achieve here in this fictional example, other things are also going to be influencing it. And if you can, not only up here, but at all different levels here, and if you pretend nothing else is happening, you're just looking at what you're doing yourself, you're missing a lot of what else what's going on, and to the extent you could build in some of these, identify some of these other factors, anticipate them, which could be other interventions, it could be, you know, if we're dealing with youth employment, we said, you know, the economic situation, you know, the fiscal situation in the country and the world or whatever, and employment situation, if you're dealing with employment in a small community and one major employer in town leaves, that's going to have an impact. So if you could identify some of these other factors which would influence influence things, then it's a much more meaningful model, because we tend to ignore all these things, and then we're not being strategic, and we wonder why things don't work, and it's often beyond, or why things work very differently. Other factors can influence things both positively and negatively, so that is my reaction there.
And I totally agree with you. And I train World Project South Africa, and all the countries that I've sort of been in, we all have the same problem of jumping directly from the political imperative to the project, bypassing a pilot or feasibility study. So we go straight from the wish to the national project without testing for those complicating variables.
And then you're not really being strategic, you're being very ad hoc, not really considering thinking things through.
Not being thoughtful at all.